Ram, can you hear me?
Yes,
Clearly.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wow,
Sai Ram, brother.
Sairam to all of you.
Sairam.
So it sounds like Swami's really putting the fire underneath everybody as usual, which is very, very exciting. As Arvind said, he's going to get it done with or without you, that's for sure. It's just an opportunity. He's testing everybody and seeing how frightening you all can become of him and his requests, because they are outrageous. Is that Mrs. Bott? Is that Dr. Bott's daughter, by chance? Yes. Can you see me, my dear? How are you?
Sujay Abad, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. So nice to see you. I adored your father so much. We were close friends. And I was very lucky to arrange his cremation at the ashram many years ago. It was a wonderful and beautiful day with all the people that loved him. So fantastic. I'm so glad to see you're here. It means a lot to me. So what can I do for you all today?
I'll get the ball rolling, Brother Isaac. I wanted to hear your journey of how you progressed towards going from 0 to 100% dedication and surrender at the lotus feet of Satya Sai Baba.
I don't believe I've really arrived there yet. It's his greatest trick is for all the years I've been. He gives you faith and then he takes it away, and he gives you faith and he takes it away again. So I think we're all on a journey to try to understand the impossible, and sometimes we're really tuned in and we care, and the rest of the time we're preoccupied with other things. So, it's always a journey of failure and success and failure and success, as it should be.
Mr. Tigrett, this is Mehran, and I have to say it is really, really incredibly good to see you. And I have to admit that since your last sharing, I've been bombarded with emails, telephone calls, and asking, can we please have Mr. Tigrett come back, please. I said, well, I'm going to try. And of course, I'm really grateful and really, really happy that you're with us today. We have a number of questions, and the first one is actually someone is asking, when you're on the path of goodness, why does one face adversity and challenges while doing good? And what is the best way of handling these adversities, challenges with grace? Would you please help with that?
Well, it's you're here experiencing everything that you created from a past life. You're receiving. Life would be a drag if it was all happy and goodness and light. It would be a real bore, and I don't think much karma would get blown away. But it's a constant journey. But this is your assignment. This is an assignment you've been given. The ups, the downs, the crossways. I mean, right now I've just been through a terrible couple of weeks with all kinds of difficulties with families and difficulties with business things and so forth and so on. And to me, I was sort of grateful because things were getting a little boring. And now I have these challenges I'm trying to face, but trying to face them also using the techniques that Swami asked me and taught me to use, which is just enjoy it, and try to succeed if you can. But this is your assignment. What you're receiving is nothing more than a reaction to your own actions, previous actions. And your assignment, this short time on earth, this assignment that you have is what you're experiencing now.
Mr. Tigrett, when we are in the middle of challenges and difficulties and these urgencies, and looks like that the sky is falling off, how is one to handle basically his mental state, and how is one to deal with these challenges?
Well, if you take the challenges personally, so personally that you become hurt and confused and all these other things, you're doing the wrong thing. You take them because you have earned them, and you just have to, really take it in and let it happen and not freak out. That's just your ego going, oh my God, I haven't succeeded. I'm not doing the right thing. Oh, I'm so worried. It's all about you, and it's a natural stage to go through, but you should absolutely not take it seriously. It's just an assignment. It's just a game. So I always just keep referring to Swami, and sometimes I start laughing when I think about why I'm receiving these great gifts of oil and everything. But it's just contemplate on Him, less on yourself, and that's the way it should be taken in your stride.
And while we were in Fiji, Swami multiple times talked about surrender. And since personally I've come back from Fiji, we've had some extra challenges in our life, and I'm sure everyone goes through that. And so I was just personally trying to figure out, how do I draw the line between surrender and having to put all this extra thought, extra energy, and honestly between us, sometimes worrying if we can make it, how to make it, not if. So how do we manage the surrender, and as well as when you have a deadline, that it's something that has to be done?
Well, surrender is fantastic, an amazing word. And it's quoted so many times, so many places. Basically, what he taught me is, when you come up against these really difficult things, you just hand it over to Him. So if you hand it over to Him, your problem, you don't know how it's going to turn out when you're all worried about yourself. But when you hand it over to Him, then it's His problem. And whatever it turns out is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I can assure you, with all the problems He's given all of us in our lives, but if you hand them over to Him, it's no longer your problem, it's His problem. So therefore, there's no way you could even care about the results other than it's perfect. And it can be a very negative result. But it's if you give it to Him, and that's the way it is, and that's best. Always.
Mr. Isaac, Gail from California is asking, all are anticipating your autobiography. How is this coming along?
Well, I've been here working on it. It's very, very difficult. The things that Swami has exposed me to are phenomenal, but no one can really believe them unless they've experienced them. Everyone wants to believe there's life after death. Everyone wants to believe that there's a divine being. Everyone believes that there's angels and other beings. But it's through faith, not through experience. But if you have the experience of going through these things, it changes everything. It really does. So, I can only tell you about my life and what I experienced. And, I just lay back and let Him take control. And whatever comes along, I accept. I'm totally free. I don't even worry about it. Because when you hand your problems over to Him, then it's His problem. And how it turns out, good or bad, is perfect. Because it was meant to be. And it changes you. You evolve. Look, nobody learns much over the good times. You learn things through the tough times, the difficult times. So you develop your character. So you develop your spiritual beliefs. This is how you learn to not go crazy when things are not going your way. You just hand it over to Him. Just glide through it. Because once you hand it over to Him, it's His problem. And whatever turns out to be is absolutely correct, good or bad. And so it's easy to accept. It's like perfect. Whatever it turns out is perfect.
There is another question that is coming, and it says, please tell us more about your insights, which you told us during Guru Purnima 2 years ago, about the opening of door in the higher levels, giving relatively easier access to God and enlightenment, please.
Well, that was a very unique speech, is that I didn't give it. Sai Baba spoke with me that my mission in India was over. As I said in a previous satsang, he called me up the day before, And he said, I want you to speak for me, tomorrow. And I said, I can't do that. I have no intent. I can't speak for you. He said, no, you must. And he said, don't worry, you just get up to the podium and I will speak through you. And that speech, that amazing speech, which was the last one I gave in India, or will give in India, was all him. And it was extraordinary. And you got to understand, Guru Purnima has been an auspicious day in the whole Sai Advent, as he spoke that day, 1963 or 64. He had a big following. Everybody thought he was, ha being, and all of a sudden he got paralyzed. And those who were around him who were coming up to Guru Purnima said, oh, see, he's not the real thing. He's sick. He's in bad shape. And as you know in the story, he came out of this coma and he announced to everyone that he was God. And that word God is so freaky. And the idea of a man being a God, well, everybody that was following him, because it was the cool thing to do, and he was this young guru, and all these people, he's becoming famous, many of them were outraged by the fact that he said he was God. And most of them left. They left his side and walked off, went away. Many were angry, and many were confused, and a few hung out and decided to continue following him. And it was an amazing thing, because that description of that event, which was on Guru Purnima, was very much like several years later when we had a Guru Purnima, and this is when Madhusudan came out and said that he was speaking for Sai Baba. Well, it's just like the other event in the 60s. It's outraged many people. This is possible. This is nonsense. Made many people angry, very angry. I think some of them are still angry. But, it's exactly the same thing happened. As soon as this phenomenon was announced, many people just ran away, and then some thought it was cool. Let's follow him, and they did. So it's an auspicious day, the Guru Purnima. Always has been for the Sai Advent, and no telling what will be announced the next time. But that was a very important thing, because these doors to consciousness. Because keep in mind, according to what we've been told, there is a third avatar coming, Prima Sai. And this avatar will also claim to be the reincarnation of Sai Baba and Shirdi Baba as well. I think that when his reign is over, people will look back and really connect that there were three of them. Because right now it's sort of confusing. He didn't talk about it much, about Shirdi Baba. He put his picture up in the Mandir, talked about him occasionally. And of course, Sai Baba, Shirdi Baba I went there in 1974, and there was just a little shed with a tomb there. And now he's raised him up. I've watched him raise him up to this amazing saint in which, millions of people a month go down to his ashram. It's, I think, the third largest visited ashram in India now. But he took them up, and it was just amazing. I think that after the three, they will see that there were three of them after Shirdi Prima Sai leaves. Sorry, and it's very exciting times to be here at this particular juncture. But if Shirdi Baba is coming, as he did, Swami announced, coming in so many days or years, and that he will travel the world, and that he will, the interesting thing to me was that he said to me, when he comes, during his lifetime, the consciousness will be raised of the whole planet. It's like the virus is connected to the whole planet. He has announced that this rise of consciousness will occur during his reign, and we will be able to see a higher nature in ourselves and in others. And this is a very important, auspicious thing that's coming. Is the Kali Yuga finally over? Is this new era coming? That supposedly is what's happening.
A very dear friend, Mr. Tigrett, is asking, how did you come to know of the subtle form? And what got you to surrender to him?
Well, he told me before, I guess it started some years before he died. He was the most popular figure, almost a celebrity in India. Everybody wants a guru, and he suddenly, with the advent of social media and television and all these things, he became a national figure. And, so many people started following him, and it was amazing. He told me, because I was there where there was no one, and lifted up, and he told me, he said, look, Tigrett, there's too many people that are false devotees, and I'm going to start separating the wheat from the chaff. And that's when a whole series of events happened that threw people away. There was murders in his house. There was this accusations of huge amounts of gold being moved aside. That upset many, many people. The murders alone, many people left. When he fell and broke his hip, he healed himself. So he slowly weaned off all the people that didn't have a lot of depth of understanding of why they were following him. So it became an amazing event to me, right up to coming up to his death, when he said, you wait here, I will, because I've had all these years of experience with the yogi and have had incredible experiences on other levels and other places. So it was very easy for me to believe any esoteric or metaphysical thing that he might say to me. But he said, look, wait here. I'll call you when I need you. This is right before he died. So I waited in the ashram for another, oh goodness, I don't know how long it was, a year, I guess. And suddenly I got a call from Narasimha, and he said, Swami is here. He's up at his house that he built, and he wants to see you. It's a call I've been waiting for, because I knew he never arrived. How could he leave? He is everything. So it was amazing. He said, you come up to this place, Mudnahali, and I went there, and there he was in his chair. There was no doubt Madhusudan was receiving, at that time, through telepathy, all of what Swami wanted to say. Swami even apologized. He said, I'm sorry you had to wait for a year to come here, but Madhusudan didn't speak Telugu. I had to teach him Telugu because Swami, even in his messaging, is in Telugu. And it was so beautiful because he was correcting him and doing all these sort of things. But I had no doubt that he was there. I had too many experiences. And, that's why when he told me to wait, I waited. And it was, of course, with many people who've had this experience with the light body, he immediately starts talking about familiar things the two of you knew to reinforce with you that it is him. And it was a marvelous, marvelous experience. Slowly, as he got more and more people involved, it was very, very exciting. Oops, sound has gone
I'm sorry.
off.
Please forgive me. We have actually a question, and devotee is asking. Previous satsang, you said Swami told you will have students. Is this time now? Like you and Mrs. Krista, you and some student. I would like to be that student. They are asking.
I'd like to be that student myself. What are you talking about?
This is another question from another dear friend is that has there been a time that you almost throw in the towel? And how did you manage?
Oh, you got to be kidding me. As I told you earlier, he gives faith. It's one of the great ways to acquire deep faith. He gives you faith. It's usually on a circumstantial level. And then he'll take it away. He'll do something you don't like or something you don't understand, and the faith goes away. Or he'll tell you to do one thing, and it turns to be a disaster. I know several people he's married several times, and the marriages became disasters. But everybody thought, oh, this is wonderful. I found my mate. But it was karma. I'll never forget when a friend of mine, his wife ran off, and he was desperate to get her back, and he gave me a picture of the two of them. He said, would you take this down to your guru and see if there's any way that I can get this woman back? And so, among other things, I was talking with Swami in this file. I pulled out this picture. I said, oh, this gentleman and his wife, a picture of the two of them. they're having problems, blah, 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 and they were divorced. And he looked at the picture and he threw it across the room. He said, when the karma is over, the relationship is over. So there's a timeline to everything. You're here to work out your karma. This is the whole thing. This is just an illusion. This is really just a movie set. Truly, for you to play out your karma that you create yourself from past lives, or sometimes it could be instant karma in this life. But it shouldn't be taken too seriously. Because it's short, it's meaningless, but it's also very important to just follow basic human, ideals, period, because we're too limited now. This is the end of the Kali Yuga. We're distracted by everything. We're over too much coming in at once and so forth. We take life so seriously. We get so concerned about things. But you have to learn sort of be the watcher. Just lay back and let it happen. And you know that it's his world, it's his play, it's his trauma. I mean, everything's going on in the world now. Of course, there should be total chaos, destruction, horror. All these things should be happening right at the end of the Kali Yuga. It has to. In fact, it's going to get much worse. But I think he wants it to come on, really quickly. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's his business, not yours. So you just have to lay back. It's his world. It's his scene. And you have to just respect that as much as you can and not get self-involved with everything that's going on around you.
Next question, Mr. Tigrett. Please, could you continue from last time? You were kindly sharing about our Sadhguru Sri Madhusudan Sai. It was cut off due to lack of time.
Well, Madhusudan is an incredible, amazing part of the side journey. Completely. When I first met him, I saw him many times around the ashram as a student and so forth over the years. And when I first met him there in Mahali, I saw that Swami had chosen him to be this amazing speaker that eventually I watched him actually enter some months later as the evolution grew. I watched him enter Madhusudan's body and leave Madhusudan's body. It was fascinating. It was incredible. And, of course, everybody's perplexed. And through sheer faith, or I don't believe that, they couldn't. It was such an odd and amazing thing written in ancient mythological history, but here we were experiencing ourselves. Madhusudan has been one of the greatest things in this in-between world that he brought for the whole Sai organization. Between his death and the advent of Prima Sai. I watched him slowly rise Madhusudan from just a vessel receiving information to actually entering his body and literally using his eyes and his ears and his mouth and his speech and everything. It was extraordinary to watch going in and out. But eventually, he had no choice, I think, is experiencing this himself. And he must be a great, great soul to even go through this sort of thing and have total faith in himself. He's written books about his own evolution, which are the most interesting books that he wrote about his evolution with Sai Baba. But he slowly was risen up and risen up and risen up, because I knew that Sai Baba was going to just continue speaking through him until the next one came. It's not realistic. But he needed to, in the preparations, because one of the things he told me, he said, we have this gap. I said I was going to live to be 91, and I will. But as far as, Madhusudan is concerned, he is his representative at that point. But then Madhusudan's, through all this, I don't think he had a choice, his consciousness started to rise and rise and rise and rise until he became, in fact, it was at that speech that I gave. And during that speech, on that Guru Purnima, again, in the auspicious time in the Sai Advent, I watched him during that speech. I felt it and saw it, him rise himself up to the Satguru level. That means that really there's no need for Sai Baba to speak through him anymore, because he had the same wisdom as Sai would have. And I was not even remotely surprised when not long ago he announced Sai is gone. He's not here anymore inside of me. It's just me. But you got to understand he's a placeholder, a divine placeholder, because he is the one that's preparing, as all of us are part of this scene right now. We're preparing for the advent of Pre-Messiah. You get all your worries and get the money and do this and do that. This is extraordinary rev up to the advent of Pre-Messiah. What are we doing? We're going around the world and we're opening schools all over Connecticut. Why did he open 29 schools in Connecticut? That's because Pre-Messiah is going to speak Canada. And he's got 29,000 schools that I'm sure all those kids are being indoctrinated, not only to Pre-Messiah coming, but to the fact that he is the third. Which I don't think there's been that much teaching as extreme as what's going on right now, and very appropriate that it should happen like that. But he's going to be the third. And during this period, it's extraordinary. 29 schools, what a brilliant way to, I've done the math. I mentioned this last time, but you can imagine I've done the math, the number of schools, the number of students, what they're being taught. So when Pre-Messiah comes, although the kids came from villages and they've got, great change in life and they've been taken out of hardship and all that, that's secondary to what Swami's doing. He's creating an army for Pre-Messiah. I figure when Pre-Messiah comes, there'll be 10,000 graduates of those schools. He will have an army ready at his side. He won't have to wait. He won't have to wait like Sai Baba and build slowly. He will have his army of devotees waiting for him. And what are we doing? We're going around because he's going to be traveling the world. He's going to be like the Dakshinamurti, the famous southern form of Shiva who teaches without speaking. And it's true. He teaches without speaking. I've experienced that myself. So, it's really an amazing run-up. I mean, the ashrams we're trying to build, he'll get whatever he wants. But, this is all he's been, pushing people to help. Just the fact that he's there and we have this hospital thing, we got to raise this money and all that. This all draws you back into what's going on. It doesn't make you do as the hospital gets built or not, frankly. In my opinion, it's important, but it's not as important as your evolution. The job he's throwing into your lap. Nobody has any money, and he's throwing it. I need $1 million a month. What are you going to do about it? So everybody is going to go, ah. But that's also just part of the game. It's part of keeping you tuned in to him, keeping you tuned in to your higher nature, keeping you tuned in to doing the right thing. Because God knows we do not do the right thing in this era. None of us. We're so torn between so many things and worry, and me. My home, my wife, my family. We build walnuts around ourselves. We don't reach out and bring other people into it. And that's the saddest thing about this, the whole Sai movement to me, is it's got to be more inclusive and it's got to be totally outreaching all the time and selflessly. But, it's an extraordinary time. And what's going on now, Madhusudan is perfect. He's now risen to the Satguru level. He doesn't need Sai Baba. Sai Baba took him there. He doesn't need Sai Baba any longer. Sai Baba didn't say he was going to be guaranteeing he was going to be doing this through him, but he did say one day I will leave, and he has, as he predicted. So this was a very, very important change just recently. Many people say, oh, well, you mean the illusion I was believing in is no longer there? I'm not going to be a devotee anymore. I don't understand this. You have to have faith, intense faith. Just look at the journey you've all taken together. I mean, the fact that he chose you to torture all of us during this phase of not knowing what's going to happen and all these things. And, it's impossible. It can't be done. But, that's something that happens. It's ridiculous. He can do anything he wants. But this is all for your benefit. This is all to give you something to do, give you something to do of a higher nature, give you to try to share this responsibility with your brothers and sisters, to talk about it, to worry about it, to do this, do that. This is a way of keeping you by his side. It's very, very important. And yes, the hospital will probably get built or not or whatever. It's just a matter of what the play is, how it's written, what's supposed to happen with it. He said it was going to happen, and it may happen, but it may happen 10 years from now, it may happen 5 years from now. He never put time restrictions on any of his predictions when this was going to happen, the exact time. But right now it's very important because the infrastructure for Prima Psi is being created. And I believe, although I'm not certain, although I've heard that Prima Psi will become, Sai Baba told me lots of things about Prima Psi, but that Muknahali will become his kingdom, his ashram. That will be his place. So the building of that hospital is important, and it will happen. But look at what's happened already. That was a little podunk, two little buildings when I first went there. And he's built this amazing hockey place with 2,000 students and all the wonderful things. And of course, he's so good at getting the government along with him. And the governor of Karnataka has done many, many things to help in many ways, including, giving a university status to Gulbarga and all these different things. When he comes, these will be his tools. And 10 more years before he comes? He's going to come at 19. I understand he's going to announce himself at 19, although at 14, Swami told me he will become a realized being and he will know who he is, but he will tell no one. And he will be a student at Muknahali, as you've all heard, I'm sure, and he will remain there until at 19 he will announce who he is. So his whole infrastructure, because his time is short, this whole infrastructure will be available there. The students, the amount of devotees, the hospitals, the good works, all become his. So it's going to be a really fascinating moment. I'm sorry I won't be here physically, but when he does arrive, and it's going to be an extraordinary, wonderful thing, which many of you will experience and see, and your own faith will be tested by him too, I'm sure. It's exciting. It's so wonderful, the whole thing. Don't concentrate on the hospital and the money and just think of the grandness of the big idea. The big idea, preparing for Prima Psi, preparing for this new avatar to arrive. Wow, it's just, these days are really gold dust. Because after he arrives, everything will change. Everything will change. And, who knows how he's going to act and what he's going to do on a personal level. But, of course, the thing is, he said mostly he'll be like the Dakshinamurti. He will teach without speaking. And I have experienced this. I mentioned this the last time. I went looking for Sai back in 1974, where I traveled all over India looking for this voice that had been talking to me and begging me to come. I wrote down every yogi, every ashram. I traveled for 7 months all over India looking for him. And I went down to Bangalore, oddly enough, because Sai Baba was not even on the list. I had all the leading people giving me the list of gurus and yogis. He was so obscure then, he wasn't even on the list. But I went down to Bangalore to see the Shiva Bala yogi, who I'd heard teaches without speaking. And I couldn't believe that. And as I approached this cupola, this amazing, cupola that he had, 500 or 800 people were sitting around him. He was in the middle. But he was in some state of meditation. But as I approached, this energy just hit me and hit me and hit me and hit me. I'd never experienced anything like that. It was like through my whole body. And I got frightened and I ran away. I ran away because I'd never experienced anything like that. And it was really quite something. I don't know that the Shiva Bala Yogi has the complete advantage that Prima Psi will have. I'm sure it'll be probably a toned down version of that. But that's the excitement that's coming, is that he's going to go around the world building all these ashrams, or trying to, even in Northern California. And you look at people, the ashrams that have been built, which you look at the people in Turkey who had to go against incredible odds of being arrested, and they couldn't print books, and we had all these problems. But their ashram is finished. It's done. And in a Muslim country, where this sort of thing is not allowed, I mean, it's just amazing the strength and power of those people. Look at the people in Fiji, this little poor country with, an Indian family even split down the middle, and what amazing things that have happened there in Fiji. And I'll tell you, it's so many other things go on along with it. Fiji's a typical example. There was a big rift between the local Indian population and the native population, because the Indians had come in, our brothers and sisters, and because they're such good business people, they had taken over from the local population all the shops and all the stores and the shopping center and importing all the items, and that's what they're good at. And so there were only 20% of the population, or even less at the beginning. So there was a huge rift, and the Indians weren't liked by the locals, and the locals were, like this with the Indian crowd, and it was a serious situation. And when I went down there was when a very interesting election, when we went down to build a little clinic. And the prime minister, who was an army general, and he had this really tough election coming up because he wasn't liked as much, and he even put his opposition guy in jail, which upset the people very, very much. And so it looked like that he wasn't going to get the votes that he needed. And then this little clinic comes along. And all of a sudden, the prime minister comes and he sees the clinic, and it's with the Indian population. And because of the family was so important, he came and he opened it and everything. And I could see that moment that he had been touched. So that situation of that little clinic started to change the dynamics between the Indian population and the native population down there. And he embraced it completely. It was for political reasons, no doubt, but he won the election. And because the Indian backed him, the Indian population decided to back him for his election, and he won it because they came on board. So now this long, broken relationship, tenuous relationship between the locals and the Indian population, that were locals, of course, but suddenly starts to heal. And then with the building of the ashram, it goes further. And then now with the building of this ashram hospital, the whole thing, it's almost like that whole relationship has been made whole, is now moving in positive directions, and both sides see the value of the others, and it has brought the Indian population and the government together. Who would have dreamed that? That was just a byproduct of what he was doing. But is it not more important even than the hospital in a wonderful way? Of course it is. So when Swami does stuff, there's reverberations everywhere. It's just like the schools that he's got going. He's building an army for Sai. Yes, he's taking thousands of kids out of the villages who would have had a very difficult life, maybe no life at all. And he's educating them and giving them self-confidence, all the things that a school do, and teaching. But basically, that's a given. But the real purpose of all that is to build an army for Prima Sai. He'll have 10,000 graduates of those schools by the time he comes. He'll have his own set of devotees, probably more aggressive and more believing and more sturdy than any of us, because they've been brought up in his world. That's why all those students in Mutnahali and wonderful Puttaparthi, which is my home, which I love and miss very much. The ashram just opened again recently, by the way. And that's another thing that's so unique about Sai. I mean, everybody goes, oh, he's dead, the town's dead, Puttaparthi's finished, and it was. And suddenly they decide to carve up the Anantapur district in half, and they're going to create a new district, and they're calling it the Sai district, Satya Sai district. It's just been formed. It's huge. It's 100 square miles, and its county seat is Puttaparthi. Now they're building government buildings. All the governments that would be at a county seat and a district head, like Anantapur was, and so forth, they have government buildings. They have lots of. So suddenly the real estate has doubled. All that real estate, which was dead and gone and empty and so forth, that real estate has doubled in Puttaparthi in the last 6 months. I have village friends that had to move out because they couldn't afford their rent anymore. The rents went up so much. And they've taken over many, many of the buildings. They're building a huge government building out near the hospital. But let's dig it, the Satya Sai district, because of all the things that he did. And now the whole thing is going to become like a capital city. A mini capital city for an area that was called now the Satya Sai district. The town will be rejuvenated. People will come. They will be exposed secondarily to the ashram, and the vibrations coming out of that place are incredible. So who knows the grace of who we will bring there to experience all of this. But it's phenomenal. He goes on, Puttaparthi is going to become a hot town. It has become a hot town here. And it's not about the ashram as much as it is this government thing is the outset. It's the reason for it because of all the good works that he did in Andhra Pradesh and that area. They did, and many devotees still, most of his devotees were immediately around. So it's exciting that this city is being rejuvenated and so forth. And yeah, it's great, but all those people that come there are going to be exposed to the energy of that ashram. And no telling, maybe he did all of this just for one person. And don't put it past him. Just for one person who's going to do great things, who will come there as a government person and suddenly he will find the spiritual path. I think many will find the spirit. You can't, that place has so many incredible divine vibrations. It's in the bricks. If you imagine all of the Vedas chanted in that ashram, it permeates everything. And the fact that the holy man was there, every step he took. And I'll never forget when they dedicated a new building there. He was determined to put his little feet on every part of that building. He'd go into the closets. He'd go into anything. I followed him. He would walk through every room and he was blessing that place, his energy. So that's a real holy place, and it will come into its own again. And I'm really excited, and it should be. And eventually, I'm sure there will be, just like Shirdi, there will be thousands of people visiting there again as the truth finally erupts. And as Primasai, I'm sure will be promoting it too. Swami was always a great promoter. So it's exciting times. But you have to look at the bigger picture. Instead of my own warrior, I don't know, I can't think, I don't know. That's too human. I hate myself when I thinking of me and my family or my car or my house or my this. And it's ridiculous. I can't stand myself when I fall into that trap. It's just a natural mental ego-centric trap. So that's the whole point of trying to, as I've said many, many times, as they taught me, the only way that you can raise your consciousness is through compassion for others. Compassion for others. Reaching through that wall, that shell that you've built around yourself and your life, and be totally compassionate towards anybody and everything. You don't have to talk to them. You can see them on the street. And as I said last time, I mean, I cannot pass a person begging for food on the interstate. I'll stop and turn around and go back and give them $50. I'm so tuned in to their problems. My compassion is for them. Most people get off the interstate and they see the person with the whole little sign up and they don't even want to look. They don't want to know. You don't have to give them money. All you have to do is sit there and give them compassion, give them love. Send love to them. I've gotten out of many a bad situation by doing that, sending love. It's so important. And if it's somebody that you don't love or can't love, which could be somebody in your own family, just ask Swami to fill you with his love and you send it on to them. It's something he taught me. I do it all the time. So it's exciting times, and you have to get away from the me, my, and just lay back and become a watcher and enjoy it and try to avoid the vagrancies of the mind being so selfish. But it's a hard job for all of us.
Thank you, Mrs. Zaiski. There is a devotee who's sending 10 tons of love to you from Argentina, and also has a question. She's asking, could you please tell us one experience close to your heart during your esoteric work with Mrs. Crystal? Thank you.
Gosh, it's wild. Mrs. Crystal and I we met, I mentioned this before. When I first went to the ashram in 1974, within 5 minutes of being in the ashram, I met Mrs. Crystal, who was many years older than me. I was 24 at the time. And she said, your left eye is crystallized. I can help you with that. It has some family problem. Come with me. I went up into her room, and we went this trance state together. And I don't really know what she did. It lasted about an hour. It was my first experience with her. But I always had terrible problems with my family. They weren't very kind to me. And whenever I got around them, I got so upset from my youth and the things that had gone on there, that I would get mad and leave. And, many people have that with their parents. And the next time I saw them, there was nothing. There was nothing. And I went, oh my God, did that woman do something? How could that be? This is amazing. I feel nothing. It's such emotion. Anyway, we met many times. I'd meet her at the ashram. I'd come to California. She came to England. So we started doing this work, which I can only say is extraordinary. I'm trying to figure out now how to even put it down on paper. But we recorded everything that happened. As Swami requested that I leave my family in England, my children and my wife, and move to where Mrs. Crystal was, buy a house there. And he said, you will work at night together for the next 10 years, and you record everything that happened. So we put a mic on Mrs. Crystal, who became the narrator of what we were doing. But suddenly we went into this trance state, and we would both, she would be, Swami would come, and we would be out of body sort of experience. I don't really know what it was. All I know is that I was in my light body, I guess, and so was she. And Sai Baba would take us to the future, to the past, to all these different things. But there were so many, many things that we did. I mean, over those 10 years, we had 1,280 hours of these journeys was recorded. Really extraordinary, over 680 sessions over those 10 years from 1990 to 2000. So I told about some of the things because it was such a wide range. We never knew every day where he was going to take us or what was going to happen. But we would do things, many things. That were always to help other people, always helping other people in distress, always helping others. I'll never forget, there was a lady that wrote a letter to Phyllis from Holland. She said, I have this daughter, and she's terrified of water since she was born. We try to wash her. She screams and yells. She won't drink it. If she hears it running, she goes into hysterics. What can you do to help her? She's 4 years old, and we don't know what to do. And Swami said, we're going to work on this girl. So suddenly we were taken back to, I think, Bavaria, it looked like Bavaria, German. I don't know, it could be anywhere, but beautiful mountains and streams and, all that in the forests and so forth. And we were sitting next to this fast-moving stream about 2 feet deep, I guess, but it was over rocks and so forth. And he said, just sit down and wait. So we waited, and suddenly we heard these wild screams coming out of the forest, and this girl came running out of the forest. Her clothes were torn. This guy was following her. She was screaming and yelling, and she finally was going across the stream, fast-moving stream, and the guy caught her and would try to choke her to death under the water. And she got away from him. She ran another couple of hundred feet, to my memory. And he got her again, and he had her underneath the water, and he drowned her. She was in terror. And we saw this string after her death came out of her body. It was like some sort of golden string going into her next life or something. And in fact, it was going into her next life. She had taken that last moment of that life, which was in terror and fear of being drowned in running water. And she took that into her next life. We saw this little golden thread come out of the body and go into, I guess, the next life. And Sai Baba said this was not a karmic necessity, so we can free this little girl. And Swami brings forth all kinds of tools and things, and I think he gave it to Mrs. Crystal that time, I'm not sure, and said, cut the golden string. We cut the golden string. We would do 4 or 5 of these every session, and we never told anyone that work was being done. But we did get a letter from that lady, I recall, about a month later, said, did you do something? He said, suddenly my daughter is fine. She can drink water. She can bathe. She can do all of that. We never even respond. It's always nice. We knew that it's none of our business, but it's always nice when someone responds like that. I can't even begin to, I've got stacks and stacks of in the other room, which I'm trying to figure out how I can put this down. Swami said this information and this everything, the whole, how everything works is explained in those amazing 10 years. But that's just one of the things. Well, another thing is taking people to the other side. When many people die violent deaths, they get confused. They don't go to the other side. And if they're attracted to something that they desperately want to hold on to, they'll hold on to it. And then they're in some limbo, purgatory world. I think I told this the last time, but this is another great story. Sai Baba came to us, and now we go. There's a lady who had written us letters who said, there's something, my grandmother had this house, and she always thought there was something up in the attic, and there was a ghost here. My mother had this house, and now I'm living here, and we hear noises and so forth. Can you help us? There's something in the house. So suddenly Sai Baba said, we're going to go help this man get over to the other side. We didn't even know what he was talking about. So we suddenly are taken back to the 1940s, and I could tell because of the cars and the clothes there. All the men had fedoras on, and it's a little one single family house neighborhood. You know how they would build them like that, and really amazing place. All the houses together, and all of a sudden we were following this little heavy-set man. He had a brown pinstripe suit on. He had his fedora on. He had this case, and he was. It turns out we follow him. He knocks on a door. We're watching. He goes into a house. He's a door-to-door salesman. He's got his wares in the case. This has been his whole life. Swami said he's not married. This is his whole life. This is what he does. This is what he's been doing for years. And we watched him try to make his sale. He didn't make the sale. He came out of the house, and we're watching from above. And he tries to cross the street. Bang! Car hits him head on. and you know, he's laying there bloodied, and of the family, that a house that he just left, came running out, and they picked his body up and took him into their house, called an ambulance. The ambulance came, and they took him out of the house, the body, because he was dead. He had died in the house. And they put him in the ambulance and took him away. Well, this was the scene that Sai Baba said he was so attached to that case that when the family, what they did, they took that case which he left in the house when they called the ambulance, and they put it up in the attic. And this was his life. He was like died this violent death. He didn't know what to do. When they die, they don't even know they're dead. We've gone through so much of that. Why can't you hear me? Why can't you hear me? We've watched, because we've done this hundreds of times. And Phyllis and I go up to the attic, and there he is, crouched behind the case, his only possession, the most important thing to him, so much so that he couldn't even go to the other side. And as happens, and I've told this story again, it's so fabulous to even remember that I was lucky enough to experience this. But Phyllis, I was the soft one, and she'd go over. So I said, go over to Phyllis and tell him that he's dead, explain to him what had happened. And she did. It's a very soft, sweet voice of hers. And they said, now we're going to take you to the other side. And all of a sudden, a window would open, a door would open, and there were light, and there were all kinds of people there. And we picked him up, and he suddenly noticed that they were there. They were his relatives. So he was very excited. And Swami said, each take an arm, which we did. And you can't go into the light, but just take him close to it, to the window, and then push him through. And we did. And so he made it to the other side. And keep in mind that there's no time on the other side. So even though he'd been sitting there for 40 years, 50 years after that attic, he didn't know. There's no time on the other side. It's one of the most fascinating things about it. So anyway, that's another story of the type of work that we would do. We also fought demonic creatures and people who are possessed with other things, and all kinds of things that would be hard to understand, but make great science fiction stories. That's 680 incredible. We transcribed them. Eventually, Swami said he had to transcribe all of them and make them digital. And he also said this is not information that is available, should be available now. He said later, when the consciousness of people rise and they understand there's more going on, this information will be important. So I don't even know what's going to happen to it. I am going to, if I write this autobiography, God help me, I will include these works and tell a couple of these stories and explain this work. It's just something that's beyond. I feel so blessed that he chose me to help in this endeavor. Quite amazing. And he, in this fighting of dark forces, was so interesting because he said the armies, this was at the beginning of it in 1990, he said the armies of good and evil are gathering for this last battle between good and evil, which is going to be happening violently. This is what's going on now, this battle between good and evil. Of course, evil has to be tremendous and huge and dominant. That brings your spirit out. And the good is in you to fight the evil. So it's a very exciting time right now. Very predicted and wonderful, wonderful time to be incarnated right now. Because he said, look, we're talking about what we're doing on the other dimensions. And he said, look, there's no point because there's a symbiotic relationship between these worlds. Symbiotic relationship, just like this. So what's the point of cleaning up the world here on the earth unless we clean up the worlds above as well? Because it will just fall back into that same horror as we did before. So we were in the process of helping or being told, or I don't know, we did it for 10 years religiously. It was always an extraordinary experience, but he has to clean up both worlds or it'll fall back into another realm. So I guess there are those and others besides me that are, and Mrs. Crystal had our time that are doing it, but he did say it doesn't take many to make that happen for him because he's controlling us. So it was very exciting.
Thank you, Mr. Tigrett. A dear friend is asking, how do you love all and serve all? And also is asking, how did you first realize the purpose of your life?
Well, the purpose of my life. Well, that goes to I'll answer that question, if I may. That was pretty simple. I had a terrible, terrible childhood. I was withdrawn. A brother died in my arms. Another brother, when I was 13, died shortly afterwards. My parents sort of abandoned me because they abandoned each other, and it was a horrific life. I became an activist because I'm a warrior, and during the wonderful 60s peace and love revolution, I was there at every march. I was there doing everything. I became a hippie and blah, blah, blah. Through the grace of God, Swami gave me a little bit of money that I made on my own, actually. And when I was 20, and I started the Hard Rock Cafe in London. And the whole idea was to celebrate this peace and love revolution. And I thought this is the perfect timing. This is great. I want to build an altar to worship all our heroes, all the musicians, all the artists, all the designers, all the, everything that was going on. We had our own. And after about 2 years, I opened in 71. And by 73, 74, the revolution was over. And the whole point of me building this place was a gathering place for those people, like-minded people. And I thought, well, the revolution is over. I'm just going to leave the business. I don't care. That's one of the reasons I, went to India and then 74 and looking and came back to that ashram the first time and sat. I missed the Utma, I must say. And I was sitting in the canteen in Puttaparthi, and I was despondent because I said, I don't know what to do. This business is doing very well, but I don't want to be in it anymore because the revolution's gone. What's the point? And I looked up, and over the exit of the canteen there in Puttaparthi, there was a little piece of wood, and somebody had finger painted on there, "Love all, serve all." And it was as if something came out of that wood, an energy or something, and it engulfed me to the point where I couldn't even breathe. I guess I was breathing in the essence of what those things meant, but I was there for 30, 40 minutes just in this state of communion with these words. And, someone came and asked me to leave. And I went outside and sat down, and I went, that's it. That's what I feel. That's what I've always felt. That's what I've always believed, that I worship everybody I meet. I just love them all. This is the message I want to use the Hard Rock to send, because we had thousands and thousands of people coming through there every couple of days. And I thought, well, this is my message. And that became the message and the moniker of the Hard Rock Cafe all over the world. There's 270 of them around the world, and in each one of them, there's love all, serve all is right over a big wall somewhere. But this became my life. This became my teaching. This became my satsang with the world. And because it's what I believed, and I taught it to my kids, thousands and thousands and thousands of them that came to work for me, so beautiful and wonderful. And love all, serve all was my message. I put it on millions of T-shirts, caps, jackets, whatever. But it was a true reflective message. I was living that. I had been living that since I was a boy. But that gave me the purpose of my life. And that's why I'm here today.
Right. So, Tigrett, this is a question that I've come across several times. In fact, yesterday, a devotee was asking a question. He loves Swami, he loves God. He also, in his life, he has to deal with some difficult people. In fact, in the office, him and I, we work in the same office. And he was wondering what to do, how to deal with these difficult individuals.
Well, all you can do is say love to them, period. I mean, we're all going to be confronted with someone. This is not a unique experience. We all have it with members of our family. We have it with people at work. We have it people at church. You know, and it's always part of your life. You're always going to find difficult people and all you can do is send love to them and avoid judging them and hating them and fearing them and all that. Just send love. You can still run your life on love all, serve all. You can't affect everybody, but you can affect yourself by keeping that moniker going in your brain, that mantra, and you just let it slide. I mean, I now in my old age, I meet difficult people, and I tend to laugh. And I tend to feel sorry for them, especially if they look. There's two types of people that ever came to work for me, which I've said before, and I've had tens of thousands of kids. Those have been loved, and those have been unloved. Those are the type of people that came to work for me. And it's all about parenting. And you take the loved ones and you put them into a surrogate family, which I did, of these young people, with an umbrella, with this love all, serve all, literally being taught to them every day and teaching them how to experience it and practice it. It just changed lives. Flowers started to grow, and people got confidence, and people got, it was just a beauty. I think that's the main reason Swami even gave me the Hard Rock and the mantra, because that was the key to its success. And there's no doubt about it in my mind. Oops, I don't hear anyone talking anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Tigrett. There is this great devotee that is asking, please tell us something about the 7th Mystic Ray project. When will it start?
Well, this should teach you a little patience. I've told this before, and I will do it again. When Sai Baba gave me the job of building the hospital and arranging the medical planning and be over the construction, I got Hospital Corp of America, the leading hospital builders out of the United States. They did all the medical planning. And, of course, we had the Prince of Wales School of Architecture in London, and the great Keith Critchlow did the architecturals. And wonderful Mr. Ramakrishna and the incredible company there that was building Larsen Toubro and so forth. Anyway, we're building this now. At this point, I had many, many years of seeing other dynamics, especially metaphysical machines in the future and other types of healing and things that have never been seen before, which was so exciting. So when we're building the hospital, I asked Sai, because I was spending 10 hours a day with him for months, I said, are we going to have a section of this hospital that is going to be for the metaphysical sciences and all the things that you've shown me, some of the ancient techniques? He said, oh, yes, very, very popular. He said, millions will come, millions, Tiger. Yes, it's going to be extraordinary. By the time we got through with the planning, the whole hospital was taken up with allopathic medicine. And there was no place for this. And I went to him and I said, Swami, what about all these wonderful healing techniques and things that people have never seen before that are extraordinary, even from ancient Greece, things that have been lost, and futuristic, amazing things. And he said, wait, just wait. So I said, okay. I waited 17 years, and he called me in one day, 17 years later, and he said, are you ready to do the spiritual school? And I said, what spiritual school? The spiritual school that we talked about. What spiritual school? The one that we were building the hospital. Remember? I said, oh, yes. He said, I'm going to send you the drawings and everything for this sacred, amazing place. And you be ready. They're coming soon. So I went into Bangalore. I told this the last time, but it was such a wild time. I went into Bangalore. went to an architectural shop, an art shop. I got my little satchel, and I got my papers and my compass and my rulers and my this and my pencils to draw, because he said, I'm going to send them to you. And I know from my experience that it could be telepathically. In fact, many of the things that I've been blessed to receive has been through telepathic message. Not all that I've followed, as he knows. So I carry this little satchel with me. As you know, I sat right in a chair right outside his door, and I kept this little satchel next to me. And he would come out and he'd go, what's that? I said, that's the spiritual school. So I remember the spiritual school. Oh, yes. Keep it to the side. Yes. And he'd come out a week later. He said, what's that? I said, that's for the spiritual school. He said, keep it up. He'd come out sometimes and put that underneath it. Don't let the others see that. And, of course, everybody's listening to all of this around me. It's so funny. I carried that with me night and day for a year and a half. For a year and a half, waiting for the master to tell me. But that's the extent to my belief and faith. I waited a year and a half without even thinking twice about it. I waited 17 years without thinking twice about it. And so finally they had this ceremony when you've been under 1,000 moons. And they did this, I remember at Adukeshu, this the guy who owned the Kingfisher Brewery, who was a devotee of Sai Baba, a real bully. He tried to push me down one time. I was getting ready to sock him, and Swami, don't do that to him. I am a warrior, you see. And anyway, they had this 1,000 moon ceremony. It was in the stadium, and they had 9 yantra pits, fire pits. And they had 108 priests all around these, all with microphones. This is so beautiful for me, and all chanting different mantras simultaneously. When they come out of those speakers, I can't tell you the harmonics of those moments. I would rise to another place, but neither here nor there. Someone elbows me when they're starting the process. They say, oh, look, he's looking at you. I'm in the VIP section just to the right of the stage on the front row there, and he's just staring at me. And all of a sudden, these images start coming. The ones that I've been waiting for, not 17, but another year and a half after that. And I just start writing, just as they come in. I'm a terrible artist, but page after page after page just kept coming, running through my head, sending them, he's sending them. Things that have never been seen in that little film. Literally cities built on mandalas, all these ancient machines, amazing things that have never been seen before. So I'm just writing. And when the mantras, the yantra thing was over, it stopped. And he came over and he said, his birthday was a few days away, and he said, I will bless everything on my birthday. So indeed, he came out on his birthday, came right up to me, and I had the drawings and everything, and he said, I bless, great. he called me in later and he said, he was like, yeah, isn't it wonderful? Yeah, it's incredible. It's the most amazing thing. He says, it's not for now. It's for 200 years. People don't care about these things now. The general population of the earth is not even interested in anything but themselves and their difficulties. And they're certainly not into this metaphysical type of stuff, but it will be part of the future. And it will happen in 150, 200 years. It will be built. I said, okay, fine. I just put them away. He said, no, I want you to do a film on the simplest things, that people can understand, the simplest things they can understand. Not those wild, just the simplest. So I had this wonderful boy, Toshi Ando, who was a devotee of Sai Baba and was with me because my life was threatened after Swami's death. Amazing, might as well add that. After Swami's death, there was chaos. There were different groups all vying to take control of the ashram and mainly of the huge trust that had, they say, close to $1 billion in it. You know, it's grace to give your guru whatever you've got. And he had collected a huge amount of cash, mainly properties and many other things. So, you know, he said, do this little film. But it was interesting because during that time, some people called, they said they're going to kill you because there were 3 or 4 different groups and there was huge infighting beyond belief, typical. And I was frightened. They said they're going to ask you to go out, and someone told me they're going to ask you to come out in the desert for a meeting with one of these groups, and they're going to assassinate you. Oh my God. And then a funny little man knocked on my door that night. All chaos is going on all over the place. And he came in, this weird Austrian kid, tall, skinny, had these cowboy boots on with big silver toes, Dolce Gabbana tie and jacket, black jacket. and he said, oh, Sai Baba gave me an interview 3 months ago, and he said you were going to be in danger, and I should come and get you and take you to Austria. So I said, let's go. So that afternoon, we left. I took Toshi with me, and the next 9 months I spent in Austria. He had a tech company, and we made that little film, that little 8-minute film on the simplest of things. And I asked Swami, why do you want me to do this little film on something that's not going to be for many, many years and people won't understand anyway today? He said, no, this is for young people. I want them to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's something great is in the future. That was his exact explanation to me. So we did that little 8-minute film, and we put it online, and I don't know how many people have seen it, but you get a glimpse of his amazing architecture. It's all his work. The amazing architecture and the ideas that he had were just glamorous and wonderful, and I think that place will happen, and it will happen in India. And he told me there will then eventually be urban centers as well that have these amazing things going on. So that's the story of the Mystic Inn. It's still online somewhere, I think. But and there's an interesting film we did. We did a origin. I think that's online somewhere of how it all came about. That's very interesting as well, because he called me in and he said 7 all day, and 7 events happened one right after another that were all about this Mystic Inn. So if you go online, you can find the origin film. Go have a look. But that's the story of the Mystic Inn. It's for the future, and it's to show that there is a future, and there's a glamorous future coming, metaphysically.
Mr. Tigrett, thank you. There is another follow-up question, and they are asking about the connection between 7 Mystic Ray and the 18 ashrams. Are there any connections?
No connection of my knowledge whatsoever.
There is a very dear sister, Shelley, who is asking, how do you stay strong, resilient, and positive with faith when dealing?
Shelley from California?
Yes. My dear sister Shelley. She's saying, how do you stay strong, resilient, positive with faith when dealing with the battle of good and evil? Would you please help that?
Oh, God. You sort of take yourself out of it. Again, if you get in the midst of the battle, you have to be once removed from all of it, because it can make you so emotional and angry and all these other things, which is part of human nature. But how could I not be resilient after spending 50 years in India and having an avatar take me by the hand and teach me all these things and have me help others? I mean, that was all the work that Phyllis and I did. It was all helping other people. It was just amazing. So resilient, yeah, I'm resilient, but I'm a little overweight, which makes me less resilient early in the mornings. And I got a daughter who's driving me crazy, so that also drives me nuts a little bit. But resilient, sure. How could it be anything else after the experience of brushing up against divinity?
Mr. Tigrett, I know that we've been holding you for over an hour, and as last question,
I want to keep going. What do you mean?
Well, actually, honestly, I would like to be sitting next to you 24 hours a day just listening to you. But we are concerned, number one, we don't want to hold you too long for today. But we also would love to ask you if you would please come back again. I leave it up to you to tell us the date. But meanwhile, as the last question, our dear sister is asking, what are your learnings from the medical planning and building of the super specialty hospital in Puttaparthi that we all can learn from and for the Rajasthani academic block?
Well, it's something you can learn from basically the problems that you all started this Zoom meeting on, which was raising money for this hospital, $1 million a month, and how we're going to do it and all that. It's a phenomenal challenge, to say the least. And the same was with the hospital. When we finally started building it, because he spent months choosing an architect. He was so sweet. All his devotees wanted to have their architect do it. So we sat there, and they'd bring these models and all these things, and he would say how wonderful, and the next person, the next person, the next person. And I'm sitting there going, you said we have to build this in a year. Now there's only 8 months left. So, when we built that thing, it was, as I said last time, there were 2,000 men. We had night lights up there. Nobody was killed for some odd reason, amazing reason, divine reason. But it was impossible that it could be done. It was impossible that it could be done. It was impossible that it could be done. And Mr. Ramakrishna from Marston Turbo and I, working day and night, and I'm traveling to London with the architectural plans back and forth. We had no way to send them. Somebody had to go get them, and there were 20, 30 architects working around the clock. But it was impossible. It was just impossible. We finally got the outside done, nothing on the inside. And we just painted it, and do shrubs. The Prime Minister was coming. So we had to go tell Sai, sorry, he's coming in 2 weeks to the hospital. It's at least a year away from being finished. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And he came tootling in a car right up. We were about to go over to see him and tell him. And he came. He said, "Oh, the Prime Minister's coming." "Yes, sir. We know that." "Yes, Swami." Let me show you where I'm going to take him when he comes in. We'll go into the dome, which was all mud. And then we're going to go to the left, a little opening, and up some stairs that were halfway built. And we're going to go just into the first operating room. And then we're going to put drops around everywhere so he can't see anything. And then we'll have one little ward with 6 beds in it. And then we'll come out and we'll go. So the hospital opened. The Prime Minister came. We were putting marble down in the dome. But that's exactly what happened. It did open. And the Prime Minister was there. And we did the first operation just as he said we were going to do. And the Prime Minister came in and thought everything was beautiful and everything, the tarps were down. But it happened. It actually happened that way. And then a month later, 6 months later, a year later, it was finally, parts were finished. And about a year later, it finally was completed. A year and a half, I would say, total completion. So this is the way you have to look at this hospital. You try to make the money, you try to get it done, but it will be done. Somehow or another, it will be done. But you're all being tested now. And your faith. I mean, it's a huge number. It must scare you half to death and say, this can't be Sai Baba telling me to do this. He had me open. He chose for the House of Blues what he had told me to do. And I will choose every place you go. I will be with you. This won't be like the Hard Rock. It's going to be instantaneously. I'll choose the staff. I'll do everything. I'll choose the cities and everything. And he chose Los Angeles as one of the places, and the Sunset Strip was just boarded up and was, absolutely dead. It had been hot in the 60s, but now it was boarded up. It was literally all the record companies had left and no one was going down there. And the site he chose was a place where there was crack being sold and prostitutes and all this stuff right on the Sunset Strip. Lights were all out. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. And then he said, yes, that's the site. I said, you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Then I found out that I'm in the city of West Hollywood. West Hollywood is the biggest gay city in the United States. It's very powerful. They are so powerful, the gays there in LA, that they were able to tell the Los Angeles County and the city, we're claiming our own area. And they invented a new city in the middle of Los Angeles called West Hollywood. It has its own fire department. It has its own utility workers. It has its own policemen. It has its city council and all that. And it's all gay. So I come going down there, and a lady who had a club there on the Sunset Strip called the Comedy Club wanted to stop me. And she knew all the people in the gay community, all the organizations, and she revved them up against me. We've got to stop this guy because I've got to go to the city council to get a document that says I can do business there. So I hired two gay lawyers. I said, go in there and fight for me. In the meantime, I'm working on Chicago. I'm working on 4 or 5 other locations at the same time that he's pushing me into. And weeks go by, we're having this big meeting where they're going to decide, and my lawyers come back and say, we failed, Mr. Tigrett. This woman has got everybody up in arms. The whole gay community thinks you're some horrible man coming in to ruin their community, and she's got to convince them. We've tried, but it's not going to happen. I reported to Swami, it's not going to happen, Swami. The ladies, just go ahead, it's going to be fine. Swami, they're all against me. The whole city is against me. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. So we have this ridiculous town meeting. It's on TV, and they're in this place. They do it once a month in the city of West Hollywood. They have these council meetings. And there were like 200 or 300 groups, 200 or 300 cats from all these gay organizations, and they were all, and I walked in, they were around screaming and yelling and pointing fingers at me. There's just me, these 2 lawyers. So they all got to speak. There was a little box, you push you get 5 minutes, you push the thing, you get 5 minutes to speak, you get up and you speak. Well, they went on for an hour and a half, one group after another. They had to, we don't want him here, this is horrible. And they're all, yeah. And I'm going, this is the end of it. This is a failed Swami. This is just not going to happen. It's horrible. I don't know what to do. Then it became my turn. And I got up and I said, my name is Isaac Tigrett. At that moment, there was a huge explosion outside the building. All the lights went out in the whole place. A transformer had exploded. All the light for that whole area, West Hollywood, had gone out. They're all holding up big lighters in the room, and with these 300 people are, and the mayor, a lesbian, of course, she says, we'll get back together in 6 weeks and we'll conclude this business and everything. Those next 6 weeks, I went around to every house in West Hollywood because that's where they all live, and it's near where I am. And I talked to every family, every group, whatever it was, for 6 months, and for 6 weeks. And they had another meeting, and the tide had turned, and they all voted, yeah, let him in.
Mr. Tigrett, although we are running out of time, and I know I'm more concerned about you.
I'm running out of time. Well, actually, I am running out of time. Look at me. Not much time left.
There's a question that about Ukraine and why it happens, and what is our duty, what can we do that? And as I'm reading this question, I see that it applies to many aspects in life at different levels. The highest level is this war, actually, that there are many lives are being lost. Would you please shine some light on this topic? Why the war, and what is art? Really, what should we do?
Well, I think, I don't think anyone reads history. This is nothing new. In fact, the brutality of the past is so much more than what's happening today. But we've become very fat, especially in America. We haven't had it since the Second World War, which is nothing going on that dramatic. But all of a sudden, this Ukraine, which has got the worst reputation in the world for being crooks and this and that and deviants and for so long, all of a sudden they get attacked by the bad boys, the dark Russians. And out of this comes the most amazing, and it's on TV live every day, every single day, because of media and social cameras and phones, and it's just an extraordinary thing. So suddenly this comedian, who is now the president, turns into one of the greatest wartime presidents, could be associated with Churchill. The bravery of those people. I wish side devotees had the bravery of Zelensky. I wish they all had his bravery. And he has really embarrassed every single man in the world with his amazing bravery and his country and his people, their steadfastness. It's just been a lesson, a great lesson. I mean, what happens? You think when America was being invaded, that we'd be all going and getting our beer bottles and putting gasoline in them to have? No, we'd be heading for Canada and Mexico. Would we be like that, those people, with the greatest odds against them? So think about this hospital that wants to be built with the greatest odds against it. And somehow through perseverance, it happens. And through perseverance, this crazy, amazing, insane conflict has really changed people all over the world. It's brought Europe together. They hate each other in Europe. I know, I lived there 38 years. They've been fighting battles for 1,000 years, but they're all together in this. And it really is creates a solidarity among people to do the right thing, to do what's right against this really dark, amazing painting that's been every day arrives on your screen. It's quite an amazing thing. I think it's great. I think it's fabulous, and I just hope that people can learn something from it and within their own selves say, would I be able to do what these people are doing for what I believe? Would you be able to suffer these things for your belief in Sai Baba? I mean, would you run? Yeah. So this is a great lesson for every single man and woman on the planet to watch these people, watch what's going on. It is truly this amazing battle between good and evil, but also the underdog, because of their spirit and their belief and their faith, putting up an amazing fight. It's the same fight that's going on inside of you between good and evil. We all have got this battle between good and evil going on the inside. And we all fall to our lower natures from time to time. It's okay. But this is an amazing thing, Ukraine. I think it has been an extraordinary teaching for everyone on many, many different levels. And I think it's fabulous.
Thank you, Mr. Tigrett. The questions are coming, but I know that we've been talking and for quite some time, and I wanted to ask you, actually, before your friends and all who love you, if we can have also these blessings and having such a session repeated again soon as you advise, and you could tell us when is a convenient time.
Well, I'm delighted that you even wanted to speak with me. I appreciate it very much. I'm in love with all of you. I'm amazed that so many have come. I'm excited that we may be able to talk again sometime.
I hope so. Thank you very much, Mr. Isaac Tigrett. I appreciate it. It's always a really great pleasure and a great blessing to see you, to listen to you. And for me personally, it's an incredible joy. Thank you, sir. Vivek, please.
My pleasure. I hope I can do better next time. I've got a lot more stories.
I hope so. I look forward to listening to you more. That's what I meant. And I have to tell you that there are tons of us that we absolutely don't we can sit and listen to you, sir, 24 hours a day. I mean, that's how much we love you, and we would like to listen to your wisdom and absorb every single word you tell us.
You're very
Thank
kind.
you, sir.
Thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
You know, Brother Isaac, even though the U.S. is hosting it, there's a worldwide audience who tunes into you from every single continent. So we cherish the time with you. I mean, you're one of the most charismatic and inspiring speakers with your wonderful experiences both in the physical and astral world. So we can actually do an Akhanda Isaac if time allows.
No, I'm not worthy of that, right?
But we would love to get together in a couple of weeks whenever you're available, and we'd love to have. So I'm looking at this really like a web series of Brother Isaac Tigrett.
Yes.
That's silly. That's silly. But
Thank you so
very
much for your time
all of you.
today, brother. Thank
Great
you.
honor.
Look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank
and
you,
great
sir.
honor for all
Thank
of
you.
us.
Thank all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Sai Ram.
Saira.
Sairam.
Recording stopped.